On today's show, I welcome Lauren Reinhold to the podcast. Lauren and I were on a roundtable together for HDA Truck Pride out in Washington, D.C. a couple months back. And as I talked with Lauren, both on the stage and then off, I really gained a different level of respect for her and kind of her journey and all the amazing things she's accomplished. So really, really looking forward to this conversation today. How you doing, Lauren?
Good. Thank you for having me, Jay. I'm really excited to be a part of this. Um,
One, oh, sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
go. Oh, I was gonna say our roundtable in Washington, that was really interesting, and I was very excited to hear your perspective on a lot of the topics that were discussed there. So I'm looking forward to this today.
It was cool. We had a really good panel. I think uh, it's a good panel when everybody kind of wants to support one another or really try to, I guess, encourage the other folks on the stage to talk. And at times I can get long winded. So I apologize if I was long winded on the stage, but I do think you get, I think we had 5 people on the stage, all that were very passionate about the industry. And then the audience was great too, right? Like there were a lot of good questions, a lot of good insights from the audience. And Martin Radilla from HDA put it together and he did a fantastic job.
Yes, Martin is great. But I think that was an awesome panel. I mean, the different perspective that we all had, it was like a 10,000 foot view looking down on the industry today. Uh, all of our different angles coming from education side, from recruitment, all of that. I think that was probably one of the best panels that I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, I would agree. It was phenomenal. Now, we're going to start off like we do with most podcasts, where we're going to talk about you to start off. Your career has been fascinating. And I think one of the things that really intrigues me that I learned in conversation with you is that you had a lot of options coming out of school. Like it wasn't like you went to go work on trucks or on the diesel side because you didn't have options. You were a pretty good student, it sounded like.
It was. So I kind of stumbled into the industry accidentally in high school. So I had a really great mentor. I was part of our FFA and our agricultural education programs, and that kind of got me introduced to the world of wrenching. I competed in a tractor competition and decided that I was really good at it and it was really fun. Originally, my plan, I was headed to med school until I accidentally stumbled on this and I picked up some really great mentors. My FFA advisor, Laura Ringler, she's amazing. Leonard Felty and Butch Gilger, I have to give them a shout out. Those two really held my hand a lot of the way. Um, Started in a machine shop working with Butch for a little while. Butch is no longer with us. We lost him a couple years ago. But it's that industry is like family when you step into it. And the mentorship, I got very lucky and very fortunate to find people who really cared and wanted to invest their time in me. So then after high school, I ended up at the University of Northwestern Ohio. I studied diesel technologies and agricultural diesel technology. Finished there, met my husband while I was there, by the way. We were both in the diesel program together and getting ready to graduate. And job market wasn't like it is today. It was a little more competitive, but I probably had 6 or 7 offers in the industry. A couple big dealerships, a couple independents, a couple fleet offers. I decided to go with an independent construction company where we specialized in aerial devices and crane repair. And that was really cool to me. Kind of different part of the industry, not your standard over the road, PMs, brakes, that kind of stuff. Get to see cool accidents, stuff like that, cleanup, did a lot of service calls on the road. That was really, really fun. And then after a while, I decided that I wanted to look into something a little more flexible for my life. My husband and I got married. We started having kids and construction, repair, and road calls. I mean, that's a lot of hours on the road. So I wanted to be home a little bit more. And I applied to be a diesel instructor at the University of Northwestern Ohio, where I had went to school. And I got hired there and started teaching in the diesel program. I was teaching heavy welding, mobile truck and construction hydraulics classes. And then I kind of got my way into our light duty diesel program that the school had just launched. and focusing on 8 liters and down, like your pickup trucks, diesel engines. I taught the mechanical engines class, I taught the fuels class, and I also taught the electronic controls class. So had a blast with all of that. I was the advisor of the diesel club on campus as well. I got to work with a bunch of really great students and companies. We ended up building a pulling truck and a pulling tractor. We'd travel around to local events. We'd go to big events. And then here recently, I decided to make another change. And I've come back out into the industry, but I'm still on the teaching side of things. I now work for Kirk NationaLease, based out of Sydney, Ohio, and we are a fleet service company. And I have started a technician training program and apprenticeship program here for them.
That is incredible. Going back to the start, did anybody in your family have a background or like something that would lead you to really look at this seriously? I mean, going to med school versus going to be a diesel tech, that's quite a swing. Was there any family tie, or was this completely foreign to your family?
No, my dad. My dad was kind of like our very small town backyard mechanic. We had a tough truck. I don't know if you're familiar with tough trucking.
Yep.
And I mean, there's pictures of me and a bouncer at like 2 months old sitting there watching him work on his truck. So I grew up in that, but very heavy in the square body small block 350 world.
Ooh.
And then nobody
Big
in my,
fan. Yeah.
yes, nobody in my family had ventured out into the diesel world. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be the first one. So now everyone in my family owns a diesel, and both of my younger brothers are also diesel mechanics.
Oh my goodness. Talk about influencing your family in a bunch of different ways. That is, it's so neat. I love when we hear kind of those origin stories, because I do think there's a lot we can learn as an industry over, what is it that piqued your interest to get you started? And so many guests that we've had, it came because of a good early mentor or a good early teacher, and really kind of stoking that flame. And to be quite honest, giving somebody the confidence to be able to kind of dive right into this industry. So I applaud your early mentors for stoking that flame. The other piece that I wanted to pick out of there was the FFA piece and how important that is, right? Because what an outstanding organization. I was a part of FFA when I was a kid, and the lessons that you learn. I know my sister just put her kids in FFA, and just hearing what they're learning already through FFA, it's such a cool thing. And I do think it really is an opportunity for us as an industry to kind of garner that exposure that we're looking for with young people.
100%. I mean, FFA has always been a huge part of my life, my family's life. That's how it opened the door for me. When I moved over here to the other side of Ohio to start teaching at the University of Northwestern Ohio, I specifically looked for school districts that had excelling FFA programs because I wanted my kids to be a part of that. FFA opens the door for so many opportunities. I mean, that's how I ended up in this industry altogether. So
Yeah.
huge supporter, blue and gold forever.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think learning different aspects of the industry, especially as it relates to the diesel side, right? Because there is a great introduction to the equipment side through FFA, a great introduction to the diesel power side as a whole. And I think, to be honest with you, I think it's I don't think our industry pays enough attention to FFA. Maybe that's not fair, but I think a
I
lot of
think you're
times
right.
yeah, right.
I know my husband and I, we've gone back to our high schools. We've done presentations with the FFA. They do like career days. We'll come in and talk about our career. But I think there's a huge missed opportunity there. We need to get in contact with our FFA advisors. You know, a lot of our FFA programs have now trickled down to the middle school level. So there's early exposure for so many young minds that don't even know this industry exists.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That is really neat. Now, as you start your path and you decide that you're going to go be a diesel technician, it sounded like you had confidence fairly early on. What was it that kind of flipped that switch for you to kind of give you the confidence to dive right in?
I think I owe a lot of that credit to my parents. They have kind of always believed in me, pushed me to be independent. I'm the oldest child. I've got two younger brothers. So I've always had that like head down, let's get it done, believe in myself. I know that I was always a really great student. I had learned everything, graduated the top of my class with honors 4.0, and I was just set myself up and I was like, you know what? The only way that we're going to figure out if this is going to work is we're going to dive in, we're going to do it. And that's what I did. And it worked out very well, thankfully. But I mean, there were times when I had entered the shop, I was still, very green, very nervous, afraid to ask some questions, but after a while, you just become confident in your abilities. And especially when you have a really good support team around you, what I always used to tell my students at UNOH, when you get to the shop, you want to find that seasoned tech, that older guy or gal to take you under their wing. You don't want to be in their ear asking them 5 million questions a day. You got to have some self independence there, some confidence, but find someone who's going to be a mentor to you and who's going to guide you. And my first shop that I went into, luckily, there was a few of them actually. And they kind of, pushed me. They're like, stop asking us these questions. You already know the answers right. So it's all about just diving in. You have to give it a shot, believe in yourself, trust that you're going to figure it out.
Oh, that is great advice. And from the WrenchWay side, we always talk to shops about the importance of mentors. I know a lot of people talk about the importance of mentors, but I think the best shops know or understand that they've got a good person in place to be a mentor, and maybe don't put as much pressure on them for like our production or some of the other stuff that I think are the pressures of a normal everyday technician. But if you find that person and you have that person in your shop, that's like gold, because that's truly building that next generation. And they oftentimes aren't the most productive person. They're not going to be maybe the one that's just, turning all of the time, all the billable hours, but they're the one that will help welcome that young person in and make it feel less intimidating and answer some of those questions. And I always look to some of our aging workforce and some of the folks that might not want to do the as heavy lifting as they used to. And what a great opportunity if you've got that individual that is, maybe was a wildly productive technician before, but is slowing down a little bit, but has a passion for helping younger people out. Do everything you can to take care of them, because that is invaluable.
Absolutely. That's your trainers, your mentors, those who've been out there on the floor, who've put in the hard work, taken in that mentee or, your apprentice, whatever you call them, and teaching them. That is more valuable than them turning hours because they are teaching the next generation and they're going to keep your company going. So you're 100%, you have to take care of those people.
Yeah, and they're multiplying themselves, right? If they're adding more people
Yes.
like that, that ultimately, to me, that is such a simple way to fix so many shops problems, is if they actually took a step back and said, okay, if we look at this through a long-term view and we put a little bit of intentionality behind a training program like you at Kirk now, right? Like putting
Mhm.
some intentionality behind that, you're going to have more success finding people, just because you're not going to be so desperate all the time. Like you'll actually take care of your people, grow them. And I think you and I have talked about this several times, where the expectation of young techs when they're coming in the shop can be a little daunting. I think, I point to this example all the time, but my business partner was a CPA, came out, uh, got his bachelor's degree, went to grad school, and went into accounting. And even he looks at our system and how we develop people, and he's like, this is insane. Like you put somebody in the shop and 3 months in they're not producing and they're frustrated. He's like, I started off after grad school doing like basic entry level audits for like a year and there was no pressure, right? Like it. And I do think we've got to figure out a way as an industry to get a little bit more patience there and truly try to raise somebody up. And I just I do see some shops out there that are doing a really, really good job at this. So it's not a It's not just a statement of the entire industry, because I do think there are some shops that do it extremely well, but I think they're the exception to the rule, right? Like I think there are a lot of shops that, they turn and burn new techs like nobody's business.
Yeah, and I think that's probably because we have such a shortage in the industry, but we're burying ourselves by doing that. We're bringing in these young techs, we're throwing them to the wolves, and they're not producing, so we're turning around and firing them, and we're back in the same boat again. We have to slow down, take some time, invest in them. I mean, think about a doctor. When a doctor begins practicing medicine, we don't just throw them in. They're gone through like an
Thankfully.
apprenticeship program where they're learning on the job, and that ultimately is going to make them a better doctor. So what we need to do is take the green techs that are coming in, and we need to train them how we want them to work, and not just throwing them out there and letting them fail and then they want out of the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Technicians, have you checked out WrenchWay yet? It's a free online community for automotive and diesel professionals just like you. Whether you're job hunting or just looking to connect with other industry professionals, WrenchWay makes it easy to explore opportunities, stay updated on industry news, and help promote the technician profession. With WrenchWay, you can see detailed job info you care about before you apply or interview, stay in the loop with what's happening in the auto and diesel community, explore technician compensation in your area and across the U.S., track your certifications, and much more. Join the WrenchWay community for free at wrenchway.com or download the WrenchWay mobile app. Links are in the show notes. Your transition from being in a shop to teaching, what was it? It sounded like schedule was a big piece of that, but was there anything else that was appealing to you from the education side of like, I want to teach other people how to do this?
Yeah, graduating from UNOH, I mean, when I was a student there, it was amazing. It was the best thing that had ever happened to me. And coming back to teach, I felt like I can create that opportunity for someone else. Hopefully, help them find connections, spark their passion, and do everything I possibly could to help set them up for what it was going to be like when they actually got out there in the shop.
Yeah.
Transitioning to teaching though was an interesting transition.
I want to hear about that, because I think it sounds easy until you get up in front of a classroom, right?
It does. And I mean, it probably took, I would say, about a year to really feel confident and find my footing. Because the way that the classes run at UNOH, I get a new group of students every 6 weeks. So I just get comfortable with them, get to know them, and then I'm thrown to another group. So it took a while to become confident. And being on the teaching side of things, there's always those people that want to poke holes in your theories, or if you say something the wrong way. So then you have to figure out how to deal with that. I mean, it's not easy. And transitioning from being on the floor and not talking to anybody to standing up and talking to people every day, that was a huge transition. And I think
Oh,
that's one thing that our industry needs to focus on too, is how do we train these fantastic techs into becoming mentors and trainers and instructors? So I think that that's an area that we should focus on a little bit.
oh, you're not kidding. I think every tech school and even the high schools trying to find instructors for automotive and diesel programs is a huge challenge right now. And whether it's through budgetary shortfalls or just not being able to pay competitively, a lot of times these schools find themselves in a really bad position in trying to fill these spots. And I, I, I don't know if I've got the answer for that, right? Like, of just like, how do you get more teachers in? I, I'm curious as to what you think there. Like, are there things that we could do as an industry to be more appealing to bringing more to that education side?
I think a big part of it is obviously the pay. Everyone knows teaching is not going to give you as much as you would be on the floor turning hours. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that transition because there's really no there's no classes for the teachers to go to. There's no training there that prepares you to take everything you know how to do with your hands and vocalize it.
I, that so I've never been a teacher. My wife is actually a third grade teacher. I give her a lot of credit. That's a whole different ball game than anything I'd be able to do. But I have spoken to a lot of classes over the years, and I think that is harder to do than speaking to a group of professionals, right? Like when we spoke out in DC, I do that all the time. Like I'm very comfortable in that scenario, but standing up in front of a class of students, and especially the classes where maybe half the students aren't listening to what you're saying, you're trying to get like you're trying to get something engaging going, and it's tough. I've talked to other teachers in the past in our trade that was the hardest part for them, right? It wasn't necessarily the technical side, it was the how to put a curriculum together, how to teach, right? Like how to get up in front of a
Mhm.
classroom and handle those rebuttals and have kind of the confidence up there. I think the teachers that have been around for a long time, they can handle that really, really well because they've probably seen about everything that you could see. But for a new teacher or somebody that's been in a shop to transition over, I have to imagine that's kind of intimidating.
It is. I mean, for that whole first year, every time I'd stand up, I would get butterflies because I'm like, oh, what are they going to poke at now? Like, what research do I need to have? Because they're going to ask me some off the wall question and then be upset that I don't know the answer to it. So then I finally just got to the confident point where, you know what, I'm just speaking to them. If I don't know something, I don't know everything. That's impossible. But I
Yeah.
promise I'll find you an answer. So that was that was the easiest way. Once I finally put myself in that headspace, like you don't know everything, and that's okay.
And that's
But
okay.
you can help them find the right answer, and we're still going to be guiding them. I think the biggest thing is just trying to earn their respect, especially when they walk into a classroom and they see me and they're like, what is this lady going to teach us about diesel engines? And then you kind of just you got to put your money where your mouth is and show them that you know what you're talking about to gain their respect. Once they have your respect, whatever you tell them, they'll take it. Every single
Yeah.
piece of advice.
What advice would you give to other new instructors about that side of it, of gaining a student's respect?
So one of the things that made my classrooms interesting is we would spend an entire day just getting to know each other. And I would always tell them that the only way for you to get comfortable is to get uncomfortable. And that's what we're doing right now. I don't want you to be afraid to ask questions. I don't want you to feel stupid in my classroom. There's no dumb questions. So we're going to get comfortable with each other right now. That way, you don't just sit silently in the back of the classroom and you don't gain anything. You have to feel comfortable enough to speak up. So that was how I led all of my classrooms. And I would say usually by week 2, they're all best friends. They're hanging outside of class. So it's just about making a comfortable environment. Yeah, we still have a curriculum to teach. We have stuff to do, but we can have fun while we're doing it. And I have to come to work every day, so I want this to be enjoyable. So I want you all to get along and when you learn, I learn, everyone in the classroom learns.
That is a great thing to do. And you get some of the awkwardness out of the way too, right? It's the
Yeah.
same as somebody starting at a new job where you're kind of going through and meeting everybody for the first time and trying to remember people's names and trying to like it just there's so much that's thrown at you. And I love that approach of just sitting back. And I think it helps give a personal aspect to it as well, right? So for teachers, a lot of times I think they can be an intimidating presence in a classroom, and by just kind of in a relaxed atmosphere talking through things and even learning, especially at a trade school, where are you from, like what area are you from of the country, right? uh I think that's just an awesome exercise.
Another thing that I did, and probably a lot of the old school teachers would not agree with, is I did not stand above and talk over them. When I was lecturing, I was in the crowd with them. I was sitting down in a chair. I'd walk around, hop around, sit next to a different student every few minutes. Try not to create that overbearing presence. I
Yeah.
wanted, that comfortable environment. So having, sitting around with them kind of took away that aspect where I was not intimidating. They could feel comfortable enough to talk to me and ask questions.
I feel like that would help you from a personal standpoint with the students be able to maybe identify when a student is struggling, but won't necessarily throw their hand up to tell you that they're struggling, right? Like if you're
Yes.
kind of getting a little bit more personal with them, you do maybe pick up on those cues that a student's just not doing well. Okay, why aren't we doing well? Let's talk through this. And if you've got that, maybe it's not as intimidating to have that conversation. I don't even know the best way to say that, but like just feeling open enough to be able to talk to somebody about it could potentially swing somebody's entire success in a career off of that conversation. Because if they're just frustrated and think they're not good at this, even though they have the potential to be good at it, and you're able to identify that early on, you can maybe set them on the right path.
Yeah, a lot of that is too, when your instructor comes to you, it's that confrontation and they are almost in fear that, they're in trouble or something's not going well. So creating that personal level relationship with them, we can have a conversation. What I see you're struggling. What can I do to help you? Let's put you on a path. Let's get you some extra, guidance, a counselor, but creating that personal level, it takes away that intimidation.
What about disruptive students, the class clowns, which I probably fell in the bucket of the ones that maybe aren't as fun to deal with.
There's at least one in every class. And you kind of got to sit back and gauge it for a minute and, figure out what they're trying to gain from the distraction. Are they trying to become friends with everyone in the classroom, or are they struggling and that's how they act out is to get attention? So it's kind of like coming down to the root cause of why are you disrupting this class? And then pulling them to a side and figuring out, how can we work together? Like again, it's okay to have fun, but now you're to the point where you're affecting everyone else's learning. But
Yeah.
usually there's a root cause why they're acting out.
And I love the fact that you're trying to get to the why of the root cause, right? There, like, is there something else going on in your life? Is there something that, you're feeling like you need this attention, or rather than just going at it and saying, hey, stop doing that, it is maybe taking it to a deeper level.
Yeah, otherwise you're still going to have the same issue. I mean, you're going to yell at them to stop 500 times a day.
Yeah.
So I think it's the mother in me, but it's a very behavioral. Like you're acting this way because of this reason. So knock it out completely.
Yeah. Well, I think we could go on forever on different types of tips and tricks of leading a classroom, because it is really, really challenging. But I do want to maybe segue this into the conversation around the industry education relationship and maybe some of the struggles that we have there. How did you see? It's interesting to me because you've got both sides of this, right? You've got the industry side and the education side. Now you're combining both of them in your current role. What were some of maybe the struggles you saw from an educator's perspective with industry? And I'll kind of leave that as a vague question to have you fill in the blanks here.
The biggest issue that I saw on the education side from the industry was they expected the students who were graduating to have all the knowledge in the world, come out, hit the ground running, and be the best producing tech in their shop. And that's just not possible. The education side of things, we can teach the theory, the background, how to do testing, but nothing is going to be manufacturer or OEM specific to what that company in the industry is looking for. We're creating the foundation, the base layer, and that's for you to continue building on. And that's where it becomes so important that we continue supporting technicians in the industry. We can't just expect them to come out of school and be the best. It's not going to happen.
No, no. And I think in a lot of ways, at least in my experience, I think it takes 5 years before you get in most cases before you get a polished technician. I think you'll find that anomaly every once in a while. You'll find that one tech that can just like they just get it right, and it's awesome to see that. But that's not every person, and that's not most people, right? And so if you as a business can have some intentionality around how you bring them into your business, and then how you really look at it like raising a kid, right? You're raising a young technician, and you've got to surround them with the right mentor, with the right educational opportunities and ongoing education, especially in today's world where everything's evolving so rapidly. To try and stay on top of all of that, you've got to be able to kind of continually bring them opportunities to get better, all while, hopefully just monitoring little bits of progress at a time. I don't know that you're ever going to have that technician that just all of a sudden gets it. Although I have had that before, where like sometimes the light switch just flips on and I don't know why it is. And it could be because they had the right mentor who explained things to them in a different way than other people had. But for the most part, it's going to be a gradual progression. And and hopefully through that gradual progression, the light switch does turn on at some point. And I think if you're patient and you select the right person up front, and maybe I'll take a step back there, because I do think that's an important piece that a lot of industry misses, is that they're just going to hire any student without doing a ton of research, or like even trying to understand, do you fit in with who we are as a company? And because, going back to your point earlier, that everybody's so desperate, we just bring them in and kind of think every student is the same student. And I always say that about technicians as well, where we think all technicians are the same, that they all have the same hobbies and they all do the same, like, and it's nothing could be further from the truth, right? They're individuals and you have to be able to adapt.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, I think one of the biggest mistakes you can make as a company is that revolving door. Just hire whoever walks in. You can't do that. You have to screen them. You have to make sure that you're hiring the right person to invest your money in, because your technicians are an investment. So you want to make sure you have someone who is going to invest in themselves as well, take pride in their work, someone who's eager, wants to learn, show up to work. I think if we could all take a step back and really look at that hiring process, and then our support after the hiring process, that would change our industry greatly. I can't remember where I was reading a statistic, but was it like 2 years is the average time a technician stays in the industry before they leave? I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
ASC's got a stat
yeah,
about that. Yeah, and it is like, I think anybody that's worked in a shop, you can see that, right? And even I think at the tech school level, I went to a big tech school, and I remember thinking, there are a lot of kids here that probably shouldn't be here, right? They saw a cool ad somewhere. They did something where it was, I don't want to say misleading, because I don't think that's the right way to say it, but I do think they signed up for something because they felt like they needed to, right? And
mhm.
that can be a very expensive mistake for a young person if they're going into the wrong program. So, I do think, in even going back even further into this, where as a business, the more you can do things to get students involved with your shop at an early age, whether it's job shadows or apprenticeships or whatever it is, shop tours, that's an easy one where you can get people through and get them exposure, and get the kids to see what it really is. I'm a huge fan of job shadows as a whole, because I do think it gets the business or the shop an opportunity to get to know the person a little bit more before maybe they send them off to college. But I also think it's important, like, if somebody does really like this industry, maybe they don't just go see a diesel shop. Maybe they go see a automotive repair shop. They go see a collision shop. They go see a fleet. They go see a dealership. They go see an independent. And like the more opportunities a young person can get to get out into a shop, I think the more they understand what compels them to be in this industry, right? What is it that's attractive to me? Well, I went to this shop and that seemed like a really cool shop. Okay, now you have a vision of where you want to be at. Now you can kind of work your way to it. So that is one area for me that I think industry could really step up and try to get more exposure to young people. And in a lot of cases, I think, and this is just my experience, so I can't speak for everybody, but I think a lot of times the businesses put it solely on the school shoulders, like a tech school shoulders, to say, okay, it's your job to bring more people into this industry. Well, in a lot of cases, maybe the recruiters for that program don't fully understand the program that they're signing up, or they don't have that passion. They don't truly understand the industry. I feel so strongly about getting young people early exposure because that will help them out in the long run.
I do too. I agree so much with that. Going into elementary schools, doing touch a trucks, showing them what options are out there. And I think you're right about the passion part. You take a good technician and you take them off the floor for a day and let them go tell young minds about what they love. There is nothing more convincing than someone speaking on something that they're passionate about. And I've seen guys come out of their shells, the quiet tech in the shop, standing in front of a bunch of third graders, telling them how cool it is to have their job. And that's something that we do need to focus on. I think there's not enough exposure. And like you said, when they're graduating high school, they see this cool ad for, a race car college or whatever it might be, and they have no real expectations, no background in the industry. They're just going into it blind. And now they're, $40,000 in debt for a job that they don't even want. So the job shadow thing's also a huge supporter of that. In my previous work, we used to bring in students from the Career Tech Center, do a different job shadow every week, just showing them what it was like. And, got to the point where we would hire some of them through the summer, let them work. And when I left, there were still a bunch of them that were still working there, still employed. So I think one of the other beautiful things about our industry is that there are unlimited options of
Mm,
what you can do. I mean, you do not have to turn wrenches forever. You can do parts, you can do sales, you can be a mechanic, you can be an instructor, a trainer. I mean, that it's limitless, really. Service advisor, writer. I mean, there's tons. And I think when everyone thinks of the diesel industry or automotive industry as a whole, they just think of mechanics and that's it. And it's not. There's so much support staff that goes into making this industry successful. And there are tons of internships and apprenticeships for all of those other jobs as well. And we need to start standing on the roof and yelling about it, get people excited for this industry.
yeah, I was one of those people, right? When I was young, growing up in a shop, I didn't know that there were opportunities beyond the doors of my family's automotive shop, right? Like I was just like, you know what? This is I think my peak is going to be a service manager someday, right? Like I didn't like at our family shop, I didn't really even think anything further than that. And had I known then what I know now, I do think that's a really important message to get out and make sure that young people and school counselors for that matter. And I did want to ask you about that part because being top of your class, did you fight any resistance from school counselors or some of the educators at your high school for going into this?
Oh, absolutely. They thought I was nuts. They were like, look at all these great schools you could get into, you could go follow your dream of being a doctor or a surgeon or whatever you want. Why here? Like this school has 100% acceptance rate. Why do you want to go here? You could do so much better. And I was like, well, I found what I love and I'm gonna
Yeah.
do it. But they were all pretty shocked, disappointed, but I knew what
It
I
worked
wanted
out.
and I did it.
It worked out. And our industry's better for having you for sure. This week's episode of Beyond the Wrench is brought to us by Jasper Engines and Transmissions. Okay, your customer's engine or transmission has failed, but now is not the time for them to trade their vehicle. Not without a working engine or transmission. Besides, would they have kept their vehicle another 3 to 5 years if their engine or transmission had not let them down? If you answered yes, then Jasper Engines and Transmissions is your choice to give your customer's vehicle new life and many thousands of miles of enjoyable driving performance. When considering the high cost of a new or newer used vehicle, there's a pretty good case to be made for replacing a drivetrain component that has failed or is delivering poor performance. Rather than trading their car, truck, van, or SUV, install a quality remanufactured Jasper product for less than your customer would have to invest in a new vehicle or a newer used vehicle. Check out their website at jasperengines.com to learn more about the money-saving value of Jasper. I want to go back to the part of getting technicians into a shop and seeing success of maybe a business that has done it well, right? And I think so often I'm guilty of this at times of maybe focusing too much on the negative, but I do want to talk about the positive of just, have you seen a business that has done a nice job of bringing students in and maybe entry level grads in and raising them up?
Yes, actually, from my time at UNOH, we had a lot of companies that would come in and partner with the school, and they would set up paid apprenticeship programs. They would help put the students through UNOH's curriculum, and then they would have employment after or during their time at UNOH. One company that really stuck out to me was Company Wrench. They're on the construction and heavy equipment side of things, but they really did take a step back and they looked at that bigger picture and they realized we want them to go to school to get the theory, the background, the knowledge, and that's something that we can't support in-house, and that's okay. So they would come to school for 6 week session and then 6 weeks off, they would go work in a shop, and it would rotate like that continuously until they graduated. And that way, they were going to school, they were learning, and then they were coming out on the floor and applying that what they had just learned in class. I think that is a fantastic way to step back and look at it. You're investing in them and they're investing in you, and you know that you're going to have a really well trained technician. And I think a lot of the time stuff like that scares people, especially students, because a lot of time there are commitment contracts. But that's something, I've seen a lot of companies kind of stepping back on, lowering those commitment years or just getting away from them altogether, because it does make a technician feel scared because they feel like they're going to be trapped. Like, sure, you're going to pay for all of my training, but now I'm stuck in a job I hate for the next 3 years. So I think stepping back away from that commitment, obviously, as a company, you want to get the money out of your investment, but I think that's what scares a lot of people away from setting up something like that.
Yeah, I agree, and it's great to hear of a shop doing good things like them, and I think the more others can follow suit. And I do think so much of this comes down to just taking a breath and looking at the long game, right? So many of us are trying to chase the immediate results, and you know, we kind of laugh and make fun of like the get rich quick schemes, but at the same time, we're trying to do the same thing here with entry level technicians and trying to get the immediate result, when in reality, you're setting yourself up for failure almost all the time, because if you bring somebody in and they're not producing right away, you get frustrated. You really, you start to question what the school's doing. How many times have we heard that? Well, they went to such and such school and I've never gotten a good technician out of there. Well, maybe it's not the school, right? Maybe if you take a step back and look in the mirror, it could be something that you're doing, and probably very likely something that you're doing.
Yes. And that's kind of what I am working on creating here at Kirk, is that well blended, no commitment, let's work through this together, let's go through training, and we're going to support you the entire time that you're employed here. So with my apprenticeship program, it is a mix between related instruction. So we'll do classroom work, lectures, hands-on training, demonstrations, and it's blended with them working in the shop with their mentors. And then for all of the current company technicians, I have laid out a entire training program for the entire time that they will be employed here, so that they can see exactly, what we want to help them with, how we want to help them grow, how we're investing in them. And it just gives them a path, and they know, okay, they care about us. They want to take some time, continue to update our training, help us become confident on the floor, become a better technician. And that was something that I always looked for as a technician, is I wanted a detailed path of training. Like, what do you expect from me? How can I expect to continue growing here? So I took that and put it into paper, and We are implementing it right now. Uh, Quite a large range to implement. We have 22 shops. So slowly integrating that in and getting some good feedback. A lot of the techs, especially our younger ones, have taken off and ran with it. And I am having a heck of a time keeping up with them on their training. So positive feedback so far. But I mean, you always have some pushback, especially with, your older workforce who's been doing it a while, and you got
It's
to get
new.
them, yes, you got to get
Yeah,
them to
yeah.
buy in. Nobody likes change, but once you see that we're doing this because we care and we want to support you, you'll get that buy-in eventually, but no one likes change.
Was this is this something you're starting from scratch?
Uh, they here at Kirk, they've been working on it. It's been an idea for like the last 5 years, and it finally launched in June. So we've built a training center. We've got a state-approved apprenticeship program, and we're just implementing it as we can. I'm in my new training center right now. I plan to I host my apprentices here a few days every week when they're not in the shop, and then do company-wide training here, bring in some of our vendors, host training here. And I'd love to get into the podcast game.
Yeah, you should. You'd be
And
great at it.
thank you. And do some video training as well. One of the big things that we want to focus on are, you can go to YouTube and you can look up some ways to do things, maybe not the right way. Want to create some real technician focused content that goes through, troubleshooting and how to step by steps using diagnostic software. I mean, that's something, if you've never been on a diagnostic software platform, it's confusing to navigate. So getting a lot of feedback from our technicians currently on, what they go to the internet to look for, and trying to direct our focus and our training toward those areas.
That is incredible, and huge credit to Kirk for kind of looking at this through the lens that we've been talking about, right? Like taking a step back, looking at this and saying, how do we fix the problem at its core? Well, if we do a better job at training, we do a better job at career pathing and really being able to have a system for it rather than leaving it up to chance, we're probably going to have a lot more success. I know a lot of the businesses that we've worked with that have really taken a similar approach are the ones that are leading the way right now. They're the ones that are the best in breed, right? Like they're very, very good, but they're very intentional. And I do think a lot of times folks that look at this kind of almost look at it like a pipe dream of like, we couldn't do that. But in reality, it doesn't matter what size shop you have. You can put something together. And there are some really good apprenticeship programs out there right now as well, accredited programs that you look at, like a Napa, or you look at some of these others that are putting together uh, their own apprenticeship programs and give you the framework and structure to be able to go out and do the things. uh, there are resources out there, right? Like I feel like there are a lot
Absolutely.
of resources out
Yeah. I mean, there are people out there who can help you get your apprenticeship programs off the ground. I know, working with like your local career or family job services, those kind of places, they can help point you in the right direction. And there's tons of opportunities for the company to benefit. It does take a lot of intentionality. You have to jump in, dive in head first. You got to decide, we are doing this and we're starting it right now. And it is an investment, but it's an investment that's going to pay off in the long term. And like you
there. Yeah.
said, the companies that we see up there, the big names today, they've taken that step back and they have intentionally decided, we're going to invest in our company, we're going to invest in our people, and that's what's going to continue to make us grow.
Is there anything as you're growing this that you've learned or that might be different than what you would have thought?
I think the biggest learning curve for me, I mean, coming from the education side, so I see a lot of, how the stuff behind the scenes works, but just the like setting up the apprenticeship program in general, making sure that you're meeting all of your state requirements, and that's a lot of paperwork. But we've had a lot of help from our local representatives that have helped us get it off the ground. So, I mean, that was kind of really the only surprising or shocking thing was, how much it really goes into creating a sound program.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy, and there is a lot of work that goes into it, but I do think a lot of that upfront work is the stuff that will kind of create that foundation for you moving forward. So it might not be as hard as you kind of continually grow it, because you've got some steady structure in place that allows you to kind of make this easy down the road. um I think when you look at it, does that also give you an opportunity for maybe those career changing people? So maybe that person that's 30 years old and maybe not liking the way that their career is going, and wants to maybe take a look at this industry. Is there an opportunity to bring them in to what you're doing at Kirk, and kind of raise them up into our industry even as they change careers later in life?
Absolutely. It has a lot to do with how you set up your apprenticeship program, but our apprenticeship program is open to anyone. So you can apply through the state and you can come in as an apprentice and start at ground level. So you don't have to have any knowledge. Right now, my apprentices are all high school students, just getting started, kind of, get the word of mouth out there about what we're doing here at Kirk. And I mean, the opportunities are limitless, though. Like you said, if someone wanted to do a career change and come into this industry, an apprenticeship program like what we have started here would be the perfect way for them to get their feet wet.
Yeah, absolutely. As you grow this, what concerns do you have? Do you have concerns over it? I'm sure at some point it's probably going to feel a little overwhelming because you're having so many people come into this program. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that does seem like something where it could quickly grow.
It does. And it's scary, but it's exciting.
Yeah.
The only thing that, kind of would overwhelm me is just not enough of me. But that's the beautiful part of growing an apprenticeship program is we're starting small, we're learning, working all the bugs out. And then as we expand, that's an opportunity for us as a company to expand as well. Hire more trainers, maybe even different apprenticeship locations, because we're all across the country. So we could continue to grow this, it's limitless. So it's exciting, it's kind of scary because you don't know what the future holds, but it's a good kind of scary because you're excited to see where this goes.
I feel like it would give another opportunity for career advancement within Kirk as well, right? Because then as you are growing this department and maybe you're starting to bring on trainers, you've got the background of being coming from education or from industry and going into education, and being able to help with some of the things we talked about earlier, with some of the hard parts about becoming a teacher. You've been through all of it. So being able to bring somebody who does have that mentality and wants to teach people, to be able to take them from the shop floor and bring them up as a trainer potentially, I think that could be another avenue for you internally to be able to promote from within.
100%. All of our trainers currently, started on the floor as technicians. And that's the beautiful thing about it. Because if you continue to support the technicians as they go through life, they age, get a little older, maybe, don't want to be on the floor forever. Training is the perfect way to stay in the industry, stay involved. And companies that take the time and invest in those technicians and help them transition to becoming a trainer, it creates the lifelong education of your younger technicians. Because that tech's been on the floor, they know how the company works, all the policies. Who better to teach your new incoming techs than someone who has seen it every single day for the last 30 years?
Do you see any component of AI helping you out moving forward?
Absolutely. I love AI.
Me too. Me too.
I,
Almost too much.
yes, but creating like curriculums and plans and knowing how to utilize AI, I can knock hours off of my day by inputting, what I'm trying to do, what lesson plan I'm trying to create. Obviously, AI is not perfect, but it creates that starting frame for me to go in and add whatever information I need. And I mean, I love AI. A lot of people are scared of it, and I just continue to see it growing and it's going to become a bigger part of our industry.
Do
I've
you
been
think? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lauren.
I was playing with this new AI I found recently and I was asking it like very technical questions. Like I was giving it fault codes and asking it for diagnostic trees and asking it for connector pin outs. I wanted full wiring schematics, and it was doing it. It was pulling this information for me. So I can see where AI is going to become something that we see on the shop floor every day.
I could not agree more. I think, and the more adaptive it is, the more it kind of learns our style individually. I think there are so many opportunities for it, and as we're going as an industry, this is the hard part for me, and this might kind of speak back to your UNOH days, but I think trying to fit all of this curriculum into such a small period of time can be really challenging. Now you're adding another element there. You're adding a lot of element of just new technology within any type of equipment or machine or truck or car that we're working on. My last question for you is like, how do you keep up with all of this?
Uh, Make sure that you stay connected to the industry. I mean, that's the huge part is building your network, your connections, your parts suppliers, your vendors, people that you meet at roundtables and trade shows. And LinkedIn is honestly one of the greatest tools and the way to stay connected. A lot of your OEMs, your manufacturers, they're posting constant updates on there. Like going to the trade shows and the expos, TMC, I love TMC, huge part
Yeah.
of a lot of the updates in the industry. You learn about stuff before the rest of the world does, and you have time to start integrating it and implementing it into your training programs. So a lot of this industry is built on connection, and social media, love it or hate it, that's one of the best ways to start building that connection.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And for the technicians that are out there listening, the one thing I'll challenge you on is be careful with which group you sign up for, or which community online that you're involving yourself with, because a lot of times you can step into one of those communities that is largely just negative, and it's just kind of a complaint fest, right? Like everybody's complaining about something. But if you can find a community that is supportive, and maybe you've had a tough day in the shop, and you've got a network of people that you can reach out to and just have a conversation, I do think that can be really, really helpful. But it is a double-edged sword in who you're involving yourself with. The beautiful part about conferences like the one that you and I met at is that for the most part, you're surrounded by people that are passionate about the industry and have, maybe a better outlook than the general public does, or general community does. Right. And so, I think it's a powerful piece of advice you just offered there, where it is so much about who you surround yourself with. And in those online communities, you can kind of have that choice of which direction you want to go. And if you don't see that, if you don't see that community that you're looking for, go start it. Like, it's not hard to start a Facebook page, right? A group to get people to get talking positively. But I think for me, trying to get more of a positive narrative around some of these groups, and maybe some of it is technical support, maybe some of it is just encouragement of hey, I got my butt kicked today, all right, I'm coming back better tomorrow because I learned something out of it, right? So that's a great piece of advice.
It is. The glass is either half full or the glass is half empty, and you have to decide if you need to change it and be part of that change. That's the only way the industry is going to continue to grow. You know, like you said, I see so many of the groups, especially Facebook groups, about how awful everything is. And then on the other hand, I'm part of some great groups where we do nothing but support and uplift each other, help make connections. If this person is struggling, hey, I know someone who can help you with that, and make that connection for someone. Um, One thing that I do want to touch on is I'm part of the Women in Auto Care Association, and I do run a connection circle that we call Diesel Fluence, where we create kind of that happy, positive, we're all growing in this industry, let's grow together, supportive area. We host monthly meetings. There's a lot of scholarship winners who win scholarships through the Auto Care Association that join into our groups. We have technicians that have been in the industry for 40 plus years and technicians who are still in trade school. And it's really cool to see that connection when they all come together. Ours is heavily female focused. I remember our first meeting, we logged in and there was a female technician in California who like absolutely lost her mind because this was the first time she had ever seen another female technician. She'd been in the industry for like 30 something years and she just lived in a hole out there by herself and she just thought it was so cool. And we meet every month, different topics. Like our topic this month, we're actually talking about our ASE certifications. And we're going to, talk about what certifications you need to look at based on your area of study. Are you heavy equipment, automotive, how to study for them, how to prep for them. I feel like a lot of people are scared of ASE testing because they feel like if they fail it, they're just a failure. But that's not why it's there. You need to prep for it and get ready for it and wear that badge proudly.
Absolutely. I love that you're having that topic of conversation. I love that you're bringing that community of like-minded people together, and shout out to the Auto Care Association for doing some amazing things around that. And I think it is really, really important. And, something like that conversation could bring somebody into the fold who might be on the borderline of, am I actually going to do this or not? And I think it's natural to kind of talk your way out of it and not want to go down that harder path. But if you do it, I was just talking to a young tech last week that got his first ASE certification, and the level of pride that he had in the conversation, you could tell it meant a lot to him. Right. And he was definitely one of those people that were maybe, I don't know if I want to take this because if I fail it, I'm going to look stupid. And I'm like, you won't look stupid. Like it's just more, if you fail, it just tells you got to do maybe a little bit more preparation or learn how to prepare for a test. And so I am so happy we got to bring that up. At the end of the podcast, I wish I would have brought it up earlier in the podcast because it is pretty amazing what you're doing.
Yes. And I think one thing the industry we could do a little bit better is celebrate those technicians.
Absolutely.
Hang them up on the wall. These are our ASE techs. Some shops do a fantastic job. Some shops don't even know their people have ASEs. So, use that as a way to celebrate your technicians. Show them that you care, that they're investing in their education.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really does help provide your shop more credibility, right? Like if a customer comes in and sees that the people working on their vehicle or their truck are certified to do this work, I kind of crack up at times because I'm like, how is it in this world that it takes more testing to become a cosmetologist than it does to work on a very heavy piece of machinery that could potentially hurt somebody, right? Yeah. I do think that's something where that could be a whole different conversation with us where we talk about that. But I am happy that you're going to have that conversation in this month's meeting. And it's, as we end this, I just wanted to say it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you. I'm such a big fan of what you're doing. I do hope you start podcasting at some point because I think it would be a great listen in general. But hope you keep it up. Hope to have you back on the show at some point.
Absolutely. I've had a fantastic time. You were one of those amazing connections that I met on accident, and I'm so glad that we've been able to continue to work together. And once I get my podcast off the ground, I would love to have you
Absolutely.
Learn from the
best. Anytime. Well, thank you for being on the show, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Jay.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com.